All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to ABM 2030, the future of ABM. We have a very action-packed and exciting 60 minutes ahead of us with some brilliant guests who you can hopefully see on your screen right now. But as this is a genuinely live webinar, we're going to allow a few minutes at the top of the hour for people to finish their last Zoom call and come and join us. So while we wait for people who are here already, the early birds, I wonder where in the world you are joining from. For me personally, I'm in not sunny St Albans, drizzly St Albans, 20 minutes north of London, enjoying the drizzle and the grey. I wonder where people in the chat who've joined are from. Curtis joining from Essex. I'm guessing, Curtis, that you're seeing very similar weather down there in Essex, and the same. We've got London, we've got Ascot, so far very London-centric. Paris, nice. Raining in Paris. We've got New York. We've got another London. I know, Emma, you were saying you're in Florida just a minute ago. A little bit sunnier. Yes, very nice. Look at this. Okay, we've got Krakow and Poland is a super international audience. We've got Austin, Texas, another Texas, London. I was actually lucky enough to be in Texas last week, and I can confirm that the sun is shining in Texas. Really nice after all the grey and drizzle of the UK. Bournemouth, Barcelona, very international crowd. We will make a start. We do have an action-packed hour, so we will get a move on. So welcome everybody. Let's get started with some introductions. So to start with, who am I? I am actually the least important person on this webinar by a country mile, but nonetheless, hello, I am Nick Mason. I am the CEO and co-founder of Turtle, and I will be your host for this afternoon. However, infinitely more important and exciting is our star-studded panel. And we have been able to persuade 4 incredible senior B2B marketing leaders to join us this afternoon. And I'm going to ask each of these wonderful marketers to say a quick hello. And if it's okay, Rhiannon, I will start with you. Welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Nick. Happy to be here. Yeah, I'm Rhiannon Blackwell. I'm at PwC and I lead our global account-based marketing program and also global industry marketing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rhiannon. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Next up, we have Amelia Koczynska. Amelia, welcome to the webinar.
Hi, Nick. Thank you for having me. So I'm the VP of Marketing at Userpilot, and I'm also responsible for running the account-based marketing programs at Userpilot, which have been pretty successful for us over the past 2 years. So I'm happy to share what I've learned during this time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amelia. Wonderful to have you. And of course, the multi-award winning Sarah Thomas. Sarah, great to see you.
Thank you so much. I can't take credit for any of the awards. It's all my team, so the credit all goes to them. I am the Group Chief Marketing Officer at Capgemini, so I have global responsibility for our growth agenda, which includes account-based marketing and pursuit marketing.
Brilliant. Wonderful to have you, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. And lastly, but absolutely not leastly, Emma McClellan. Emma, great to have you. And yeah, welcome to the webinar.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm Emma McClellan. I'm the Global Account-Based Marketing Manager at Cognite. Been with the company 4.5 years. I'm excited to be here on this amazing panel. So thank you, Nick.
Brilliant. Great to have you, Emma. And thank you to all of our panelists for joining us. I'm sure you'll agree, a truly star-studded cast that we have today. But before we hear from all of our panelists, I just want to give a quick introduction on where this conversation begins to set the scene for the discussion that we have to come. So last October, we took a long, hard look at where ABM is heading. We looked at the trends, we looked at the risks, the opportunities, all of that exciting stuff. And we spoke with dozens and dozens of senior marketers. And that thinking coalesced and became our ABM 2030 report. And if you haven't read it so far, please do yourself a favor, grab a copy using the QR code on the screen. And today's session is really going to dive into some of the key topics from that report with our incredible panel. And hopefully we'll all come away enlightened, emboldened, and I always aim for entertained as well. So we're going to start with the big, quick picture question. What is the burning issue keeping marketers up at night? Marketing leaders, I should say, up at night. Well, based on all of our research and everything that went into the ABM 2030 report, it is and remains the revenue gap, the disconnect between marketing spend and measurable revenue outcomes. Dollars go in on the left-hand side, but often little comes out in terms of tangible, provable, stand-upable, defendable pipeline and revenue delivered. And marketers are on the hook for revenue. As marketing leaders, we need to be able to tell our CFOs credible stories about how every dollar is driving pipeline, or else our budget can be at risk. Meanwhile, in the land of ABM, ABM can be expensive, and marketing leaders must prove the high cost per account is actually worth it, or as we like to say, prove that the juice is worth the squeeze. And yet many of us are trapped in a cycle. We're trying to drive ABM with static content that is a data black hole. The catch-22 in all of this is that making ABM content dynamic, measurable, and personalized adds even more cost when we try to do it manually. And that leaves us with vanity metrics, clicks, opens, downloads, instead of attributable dollars. No meaningful first-party intent signals, sales teams disempowered, grumpy CFOs, no one likes grumpy CFO, and marketers feel the squeeze and are on the wrong end of the stick. But every challenge presents opportunities when we view it through the right lens, and that's exactly what our ABM report explores. So through the research, through that report, we identified 3 key pillars, which we believe will allow ABMers to chart a very exciting future as we look towards 2030. A future where ABM isn't just a marketing tactic, but is actually the operating system that drives B2B revenue forwards. And so to introduce these pillars one by one, we have signals, AI, and systems. So signals, this pillar is all about moving from static content, PDFs, data black holes, to rich content that delivers first-party intent signals to drive our understanding of our buyers, of our buying groups, and ultimately help us understand what it's going to take to secure trust, belief, and ultimately down the line, business. So that's the first pillar, is signals. Second is AI. Everyone is continually hearing about AI all day, every day, through LinkedIn, through every channel imaginable. But the opportunity framed through the ABM 2030 report is about moving us from manual, slow personalization and analysis through to automated, human-centric personalization and analysis techniques. So a huge opportunity with that second pillar represented there by ABM. And lastly, but not leastly, systems. So this is the ability for new technology and processes to move us from manual, slow, hand-driven ABM efforts into genuinely scalable systems of rapid learning and improvement, embodying positive feedback loops and data to make sure that we are improving with each turn of the handle and getting quicker, more efficient, and delivering better outcomes. So that hopefully serves as a quick backdrop and a scene setter for today's conversation. And those 3 pillars are going to form the meat of our discussion today. And so I'm going to open up now to our panelists to discuss each of these exciting themes in turn, beginning, of course, with signals. So Rhiannon, hopefully it's okay. I'm going to pick on you because I know that when we think about signals, building trust is a huge focus for PwC when it comes to ABM, and rightly so. So I wondered if you had any thoughts to share on how signals can help ABMers to foster that trust, and so all of that data doesn't just end up as more noise.
Yeah, and I suppose at PwC, we're a relationships-based business, and we're a brand, our brand opens doors for us. So we're in the fortunate position that a lot of our client partners have these deep client relationships already. So often we're looking for signals and intelligence that we can use to empower authentic relationships that we're trying to build. So that might be sharing with partners, what clients are reading about online, to give them some threads that they might want to pull on in a conversation, or maybe give them some insight into the pain points that clients are researching. So again, it helps them position PwC around the topics that we know are on our clients' mind. I think the other interesting thing about signals is, up until today, perhaps we've been looking more at individual signals, what's being clicked on, what's that individual client read. And now, buying committees are getting bigger, more complex, and often harder to understand and see. I think how we look at signals might need to change a little bit, and we can use them to understand and predict perhaps what's going on in the wider room where we've got hidden buyers that we're not actually aware of. So I think that's how we're going to perhaps look at signals a bit differently going forward, to uncover those hidden influences that perhaps we don't get to see so obviously through our tracking at the moment.
Awesome. So for you, it's really about making sure that field teams and marketers are equipped with knowledge about the people that they're going to go and speak to. So thinking about the outcome that we want to drive before we start collecting data, and also that opportunity, which I think is really interesting, which is sort of demystifying the buying group, right? That's a hell of a topic to explore. Very cool. Very cool. And Emma, I know that you spend a lot of time thinking about scalability as it relates to ABM. And so building on what Rhiannon was saying there about the ability to build trust and start to understand the people in the buying group, how are you thinking about that translating into the scalability of ABM as we look forward?
Yeah, I think it's really important too when we look at intent and how we scale that out to our teams. And for us, we've really shifted our focus on, not just, when we look at the future of signals, not just more data, but how these signals are getting operationalized for us in ABM, for marketing, and especially for our sales teams. The real challenge that we've run into is how are we translating these signals into something that sellers, our revenue team can actually act on. So at Cognite, we've learned quickly that, signals don't just drive impacts when they're living within our marketing dashboards, but more so when they're becoming that prioritization guidance. And we've built a few dashboards that, enable our sellers, our marketing team to use, not just to show activity of who's showing intent, but to give clarity on which accounts to focus on, what buying groups are showing engagement, and really which signals, indicate that real evaluation behavior. Because I think, we don't need more data, we need more confidence on where to spend time. And I think that's like a big shift that we've seen this past year on interpreting these signals, and not just having the visibility, but like that decision to support across the organization.
That's great. And have you seen sort of sales and field teams take to that? Have you had any struggles with getting adoption there around the usage of signals, or are people seeing the benefit quite readily?
Yeah, they're seeing the benefit, especially our ADR teams. They're on the front line, so we're trying to roll this out. So they're using it, and they're taking in those intent signals. They're seeing which accounts and groups are having that buying behavior, and it's been really cool to see the success come from that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And Amelia, as we think about, we're going to talk about AI in just a minute, but I know it's a major focus for you at Userpilot. I'm guessing you see those signals as being increasingly important to fuel those systems and those automated processes that AI can help us with so much. Are you seeing similar usage to Emma and Rhiannon there, or how are you approaching it at Userpilot?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of kind of in common that we are doing. However, we're quite a bit smaller in terms of our entire company and team size. So actually, we had to at some point dissolve our BDR/ADR team. And we essentially replaced, it sounds like a cliche, replace, the BDRs with AI SDRs or AI agents. And we just found that our BDRs were simply not able to process all the data points that were required to personalize the outreach messaging effectively, and that AI was doing such a much better job that it's just like we couldn't justify the investment into keeping a BDR team that was also quite unhappy with having to do all of this, manually at the scale that it was required. So what we're doing is basically fueling all these signals, both first party from our own CRM and third party signals, for instance, technology usage, job postings, company basically announcements into an orchestration system, and combining them all into like this overview of all the activities in the account, and then generating very relevant messages to accounts that are basically showing intent signals.
Wow, that's a hell of a futuristic process you've got there. I guess one of the things that I start to wonder is, back to Rhiannon's point on trust. Have you seen any challenges with trustworthiness when you deploy that type of model in the market? What have you seen there?
Well, we don't openly advertise it, right? So, and I don't think we have to, because the messaging is actually a lot more bespoke, personalized, and natural sounding than that was previously produced by our several BDRs. So that's kind of the power of being able to, evaluate, say, 360 different data points at once, which is like something that no human brain can possibly comprehend. In a time frame, of course, that is justifiable for a company with a lower ACV. So, if we're talking 6-figure deals, that probably makes sense. If we're talking low 5 figures, it gets to a point where, it doesn't justify the effort. So we had to implement scalable systems, but that doesn't mean it compromises quality or trust, I would say. So of course there are also security guardrails in place, and we are, like very, very much aware of that.
Yeah, and I guess Rhiannon, to that point around sort of ACV and the size of the opportunities and the relationships, it's going to be a little while before businesses like PwC start relying on AI SDRs, I imagine.
Yes, I think we're talking a whole different world here from where we are with our relationships.
Yeah, I think so. It could be a little while, right? And Sarah, to bring you in sort of across the top, I know we've spoken previously about the challenges and the trials and tribulations, let's say, of managing and governing some of these data sets, these signal data sets across a multi-geographic, multi-faceted, $20 billion business like Capgemini. Do you have a view? How are you approaching some of those challenges around data governance and management to ensure that everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were, as we look to collect more and more signals and data?
I think it's probably the challenge that we all face, and it comes back to the word that Rhiannon used around trust. It comes around consistency and defining and working with the sales colleagues to what they really need. I can produce all the data in the world, but if my sales leaders and my client partners don't trust what I'm giving them to take forward, and Capgemini is a business that works very much like PwC does in large scale opportunities, very relationship driven, and it's not a product sale per se. We have to have a level of rigor. We have to have a level of scalability. I look at how I can industrialize everything I do. That's meaning using AI assistants to analyze, to personalize, to give us insight, but it also requires a human element to add to it. I think all of us could drown in data. Not all that data is meaningful. So it's really honing in and getting focus around what is going to move the dial for the goal that you have and the dialogues you are having. And that tends to be quite targeted in the nature of the sell that in a business like Capgemini or even PwC.
Yeah, great. So it's the same sort of fuel into the system, right? We're still talking about collecting signals, analyzing signals, turning them into useful insights. But then if I understood what you're saying correctly there, Sarah, it's then how do we start to build trust around those with the other teams that we depend on and work with, so that everyone's sort of pointing in the same direction? Is that sort of a fair takeaway?
It is, and I think marketing. And I'm not doing a disservice to anyone, I hope, but historically we might have been known to be a little bit pink and fluffy in the past. Now we are really a data-driven function. We have a huge amount of insight and value to deliver to the counterparts that we work with in the business. And I think it's being literate in the language of data, really understanding where you can add value. For those of us that will work with an account team, it's having a seat at the table and really bringing valuable insight to them that's additive to the discussions they're having and additive to building relationships and ultimately moving towards the sale.
Brilliant. Wonderful insights. Thank you, everyone. And a great sort of segue, I suppose, into the second pillar that we're going to look at, because we've started to dip our toes into AI there with some of those discussions. And so, Emma, I wonder on the AI side of things. Certainly, it feels like you can't click on a web page or move without reading about AI adoption and how it's accelerating and exploding every 5 minutes. Certainly on LinkedIn, it's a perennial thing. What have you seen for AI? What have you seen be the most effective use case so far for AI?
Yes, it's hard to avoid AI. We're a company for AI for industry, so I know a lot about it, and we're trying to implement AI into how we work in ABM, because I think you have to start working within these AI workflows and how it can help you. One of the use cases I've seen is especially helpful, and like what we want to develop is pattern recognition across accounts. We've used AI, when it was first starting with like content, copy, email writing, ads. But I feel like the real magic happens when AI really helps you understand why are your similar accounts behaving differently, which combination of your campaign touches are actually moving these deals forward or creating pipeline. And I know one of the hardest problems in ABM is attribution. We have long sales cycles and complex buying groups. So we're struggling to connect these dozens of micro interactions across of our channels. So I think, and Amelia said it as well, like there's hundreds of data points. So how can we put that all together? And I feel like AI can come in as being more of an interpreter for us and helping detect those early stage buying patterns and recommending those next best plays that we can have when looking at that account level and seeing okay, what are their digital transformation strategies, what are their business goals. I truly don't think AI can replace our strategy. That's what we do best as ABMers, as marketers, but it really can amplify our judgment and expertise on research for accounts that used to take us hours, but now can take us, minutes by training AI to help us with those account research and detecting that early stage buying pattern.
Brilliant. So it's really about sort of accelerating those learning loops and getting to a place where we're learning quicker and we're executing quicker based on those learnings. And is that something that you're sort of quite far down the track on? And I wonder if you could share a little bit about, how you're doing that, maybe.
We're not far on the track. We're on the track, but yes, it's on the roadmap for us to get there. I think we're learning a lot right now. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's the same for everyone, right? Every marketer I speak to is sort of taking good early steps, but there's a hell of a way to go on this journey, right? And that's true for everyone. And Rhiannon and Emma was talking there mostly about the benefits of AI as it comes to understanding data and learning quicker and spotting those patterns. But obviously another area that I think you and I have spoken about previously relates to personalization. And I wonder if you've got thoughts. Do you think we'll end up in a place where those fully personalized experiences are just table stakes? And what do you think that will mean?
Yeah, I think absolutely we will. And I think what's interesting, and I know we keep coming back to that trust topic, but the question that you ask Amelia around what are you doing to make sure that your use of AI is not eroding trust? And that's where I think there's a really interesting use case for AI in the role it can play in building trust before we get to the point where we are building a personal relationship with a client. And, we know that more of that buyer journey is taking place online before they actually talk to a human. And I see that AI's got this real role now in helping us build that trust through relevance, through personalization, so that when it gets to the point where that person comes in to build that relationship, you've already warmed them up, built that credibility and that trust as well. So yeah, I absolutely think personalization is table stakes, and it's what can happen perhaps before they reach that human, where then that authentic human relationship takes over. I think it's how those two things work hand in hand. And I think what we'll see is that more of a premium gets put on those human experiences. So when someone dedicates their time to me, comes to meet me in person, invites me to a face-to-face event, I do think we'll see a premium on human interaction, because personalization through AI just becomes what I expect.
And that's a fascinating perspective. I couldn't agree more. I'm reminded of some of the research that I'm sure we've all read around, how buying groups form, and they've already created their shortlist, and the one at the top wins 75% of the time, right? That's really the same kind of dynamic that you're speaking to there, I think.
That's it. And how do we use AI to perhaps facilitate some of that peer validation that we know people are looking for more and more? And I think it was the LinkedIn B2B Institute that did that really interesting buyability research, where that key question that people were asking is, do people like me buy from companies like them? And so I think if we can use AI to perhaps identify where people are seeking that reassurance and validation, using it to package up and enable buyers with what they need at that early stage in their journey, I think AI's got a massive role to play in helping us build that early trust that then opens the door for our sales guys to swoop in and make all the money off them
and take all the credit. I'm joking.
Well, yeah.
What salesperson would ever do that? Fascinating, thank you. And Sarah, turning to you, I always wonder, for a large organization like Capgemini, AI must simultaneously be the ultimate embodiment of opportunity, but also of risk, right? And so for a business like Capgem, how do you start to navigate that path to take full advantage of AI without tripping up?
I mean, like already's been mentioned, we have very robust guardrails in place, shall we say, in terms of our own usage. We have partners with all the big players in the space, and we have our own set of tools to use with our own data. So we've got a giant playground that has guardrails around it. We obviously set up similar environments for clients. And I guess I'm in the enviable position, and I get to see the work that we're doing for clients, particularly enabling their businesses to extract ideas that I think are usable in our business, and to then get to tap, real expertise to help facilitate growing my team, not by number of marketers per se, but the teams, the agentic teams that can help my team be a lot more effective. And we talked a little bit about the productivity and that becoming table stakes, but honestly, that's still a massive benefit to all of us, to be able to accelerate our production cycle, our ideation cycles. I saw some interesting data around a piece that a competitor had put out, actually. And some of the analysis on the creative process was actually they got to a concept much faster when it was AI generated, because people felt they could give an opinion. They weren't offending somebody's work. They actually had a really objective discussion around what was working on the creative and moved it forward at an accelerated rate, whereas normally people have held back and only kind of maybe come down later down the line to actually give their true opinions. And I think things like that are really fascinating.
That is fascinating. I was talking to someone about this earlier, where we were saying one of the great things about working with AI is that it has no ego. And so if you tell AI, I didn't quite, but you're saying really interesting, that goes a step further, where actually,
well, it's either on brief or it's not. But
right.
I'm not, if it's Rhiannon's idea, I don't have to worry about treading carefully, because I know she's put her heart into it, but I actually really don't like it. When it's objective, and it's driven by an AI tool, you're very clear about saying what you like and what you don't like and how it will resonate or not. And that speeding up of getting things into market, and then to be able to test reaction to them and refine from there, is powerful for all of us. There's no sort of long cycle anymore. We can really speed up how we produce things. And I see it constantly being dismissed as, oh, it's just productivity. But from a marketer standpoint, that productivity is a huge pillar too.
Sarah, I think there's a whole webinar in that one topic right there.
I can't take credit on the work. It was one of our competitors who did a brilliant piece. And actually, in publishing the piece, they wrote these insights about how they had produced the content and the creative around it. And I thought it was a really clever idea. And it's always those ideas where I'm sort of like, oh, why didn't I think of that? The ones that I think it's worthy of calling out.
Nice. I'd love to know what that is. Perhaps offline you could share that. And Amelia, turning to you, I know AI is a huge focus at Userpilot, and you're really leading the charge, as we saw before. We're probably several steps down the path for most of us on applying AI to ABM. I wonder if you could share a bit about what you're doing today and how you expect your use of AI to evolve over time.
Yes, so there's kind of this two-pronged, I would say, approach that we're taking to using AI for ABM. One prong we've already executed, and the other one is work in progress. So the one that we've executed, and I mentioned before, is the follow-up outreach. So basically, we collect the signals from our ABM tool. We distribute our ABM campaigns mostly through LinkedIn ads. So we're essentially using Zen ABM to collect the engagement signals from LinkedIn ads and push them back to our CRM. And we combine that with all the other signals that we have on our accounts, target accounts in the CRM, push all of that back into Clay, where we essentially enrich the account details with the ICP basically profiles, so contact details of the ICPs based on which personas we're engaging most with the content on LinkedIn. We target, of course, specific personas only, so there isn't like that much variability there. And we also combine this data from our LinkedIn ad engagements and the CRM with third-party data that I mentioned before. So for instance, hiring signals, product launches, any technographic insights into the company. And all of these signals feed into a Agent, which is basically OpenAI API with a set of prompts that guides the agent which signals to prioritize. So we have actually manually labeled the signals into buckets, and the agent knows to look for signals in the first bucket on the company level and signals in the first bucket on contact level. And based on these signals in the first bucket, create an outreach message to that specific person in that specific account. We have fed the agent insights from our top SDR and BDRs in terms of like what messaging has resonated most in the past with specific personas. So the agent knows like what angle to use when they talk to a product marketing manager versus a product manager versus a customer success manager, for instance. But they still like combine this like personal level, contact level signals with company level signals to craft the message. And the message is crafted as, custom property in the database, and through the Smart Lead and HeyReach API, it's then sent into an outreach template, which literally consists of a greeting and a custom variable that is filled individually for each contact. So each contact that we reach out to gets, a bespoke message that is, aligned with what we know about them as a person and what we know about their company and the situation of the company right now.
Amazing.
So this is what we have executed, and that is bringing us around 65 positive replies from interested prospects per month at the moment, completely autonomously. But we do have an SDR that then picks up the responses and basically works the leads afterwards manually. So it's not like a fully autonomous system that, opens and closes deals. That would be, amazing, but we're not there yet. And the first prong that we are working on is actually building the campaigns. So building this marketing brain system in GitHub that basically is a repository of all we know about ourselves, our target accounts. So that account intelligence we have already done for outreach, everything that we know about the market, the personas, use cases, their jobs to be done, etc., etc. So this can include like all the blogs we have published across the past 7 years. This can include all our webinars, battle cards, any marketing collateral. And that basically feeds into the structured repository on GitHub that, has MD files for Claude code to use. And the different MD files are basically different skills, different instructions with prompts. And based on those, we are then able to produce marketing collateral a lot faster without losing context. Because every time someone, files, say, a piece of marketing collateral somewhere on Google Drive or Notion or wherever, it's very hard sometimes for other team members to find it. We have new team members joining, team members leaving, and the tacit knowledge gets lost over time. So we now started building out this basically structured context that we will be using to produce the campaigns in like a more effective way. For instance, feeding our ad engagement information into the system. So our ads can learn from the performance over time, and we know what resonates with specific persona.
That's brilliant. Just to cut in there, Amelia, it's great we've gone so far. You've taken us all the way from AI all the way through to systems, right? And it's amazing to hear about, the incredible sort of truly agentic system that you're building there at Userpilot. Rhiannon, I want to bring you in here. I guess with all this talk of scale and systems and agents and robots, it all, it could end up all being a little bit Terminator 3, right? Where do you think that humans will add sort of authenticity and add value into that world as we start to move towards a more agentic future?
Yeah, I think what I think is really exciting, and I've always seen ABM as playing a really critical role in the overall client experience. You know, it will help them experience our brand in a different way. It will change how they feel about our brand and how they feel we feel about them, that they're valued clients as well. And so I've even been out there talking to clients about the fact they're part of our ABM program, and this means you'll get, you know, more custom and relevant insights from PwC as well. So I've always viewed ABM as being really part of delivering the client experience to a client. And so it will always need that human element, the creativity, the authenticity, but the AI and the agentic is what enables us now to provide that elevated client marketing experience to a much broader portfolio of accounts. So if we look at technology like Turtle, suddenly we can scale personalized magazines to all of our priority clients. And then when we've kind of introduced this sense and respond approach to our portfolio. So where we see there's a business need or a client need where we do need to bring that hands-on strategic ABM extra bit of focus, we can do that and then roll them back down into this more keep in touch, elevated client marketing experience. And that's the bit that's enabled through AI and technology. So I think it's a really exciting time where we can offer that at more scale to our clients. It really does make a difference how they experience our brand, but it requires that balance of tech and humans. Thank God, because we do still want a job at the end of all of this.
I think so. Most of us do. So it's fascinating to hear you talk there, Rhiannon. It sounds like you're sort of seeing a similar future, but in PwC's world, what that is all really supporting is for the human element to operate at a higher altitude and to make sure that we've got those sort of super high value, super high trust touch points, but we've still got, you know, a system to fall back on to help us and support us.
Yeah, exactly that.
Brilliant, thank you. And so turning to you, Emma, as we think about scaling ABM systems, either sort of, you know, the fully agentic view or looking to something that's a bit more sort of human and agent working together, we've seen people describe the potential for these types of systems along the lines of an equation around sort of sales and marketing alignment plus systems thinking plus AI squared, so a lot of AI, equaling revenue impact. And so taking those three components together and pulling them together in order to drive those commercial outcomes we were talking about earlier. How do you see that equation? What do you think are the ingredients and the potential outcomes if we can get this right as marketers?
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's a lot of moving parts, and that's what we've seen at Cognite. And so, you know, as ABM evolves, it's really going to become a coordinated way for your entire organization to move the right accounts forward and all working together to get to that goal. Because the shift that we're seeing is not just about marketing evolution, you know, how we're developing, but the entire organization and how we're developing together. And it really comes down to like the buying reality. And we're not winning these enterprise deals just by generating more noise through ABM, but by creating these coherent and relevant experiences over time and building that trust, but also implementing AI into how we do our workflows. But all that to say, that requires more than just marketing do that. It really requires alignment across sales, across the entire revenue org, leadership, building that trust within leadership and how to secure that buy-in, our ADR teams, our customer-facing teams. But how I see ABM is really the connection and that operating layer that connects these signals, connects the decisions and the engagement across our entire organization and revenue engine. So we're not just saying, okay, ABM is only campaigns or we're only plays or we're launching this AI tool to do this, but no one else is using it. I think it's continuous account orchestration. And that's really what ABM can enable is that consistency rather than the intensity of just doing, but bringing everyone in together to work towards that same goal of, you know, we want to close one deal and we're all working towards that goal together on the same accounts and using all of our knowledge across sales, revenue, marketing to come together to work to make that happen.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great perspective. And Sarah, you'll be glad to hear you get the last word on this one. Clearly, from the discussion that we've had and from everything that we see going on in the world, there's an awful lot of excitement around the potential to scale ABM through some of the means that we've spoken before. But as ever, the path going from theory to reality is never a straight line. And so you've already shared some thoughts on this, I appreciate, but I wonder if you've got any further thoughts, advice for marketing leaders looking to make that transition, scale their ABM and take advantage of all of these exciting new technologies.
I think what's really great listening to all the other panelists here is the vision for what account-based marketing can be and the impact, the business impact it can have. And I think, you know, a lot of what Rhiannon was saying really resonated with me. I'm redesigning our organization, our marketing organization, to fuel growth, and client experience is the spectrum that I'm thinking along, you know, because that is the fundamental. And we need a seat at the table. We need to be part of the team. And we need to recognize we fight headwinds of people's understanding of what we do, of historical view of what it might be. I mean, it comes back to that being, you know, data driven and the real insights and actionable insights we can provide, the brand experience that we can deliver, all of that, it makes a tangible difference to an organization, you know, getting the buy-in from the business executives, and not just the ones on their ground on an account where they're client facing, and actually often they're really just grateful to have the extra help, but at the top table, making sure that we articulate the impact that we deliver in business terms so that we are seen as a serious business partner that is additive to the business. You know, we are there's a cost to the business, an investment the business needs to make to market. So we need to show actually how we are driving growth and how we are impacting the bottom line. And that takes us back to that being seen as revenue generators and actively supporting anything that's growing accounts and making a P&L impact.
Great. Thank you. So really keeping that as our North Star, making sure that that ROI and that commercial value is sort of legible to everyone in the business, and that we organize our resources to sort of maximize the opportunity. I think it's a great point. And
I think even if you're not there, having the vision of that's where you're going, because that's what is impressive of listening to my other panelists. Everyone is really painting a vision, maybe beyond what we can actually do right now, but the aspiration is there, and that's what the drive is, and that's what we need to keep focusing on.
Wonderful. I think that's a brilliant comment to end on there, on the on interrogating those three pillars, the point around the commercial value that we can deliver. Whether we're looking for sort of fully agentic or human in the loop and more of that type of thing, keeping that as a North Star, I think is a great point to end on there. So thank you everyone for taking us through. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone, but I think we've well and truly interrogated and dissected those three pillars. And so thank you very much for all of your thoughts and input, and hopefully the audience found that as useful as I did. But having such a great panel of marketing leaders, we couldn't resist asking each of you to think about a hot take, so a unique or unexpected aspect of what the world of ABM might look like in 2030. And so Rhiannon, I wonder if you would mind sharing with us, please, your hot take for ABM 2030.
Well, I mean, I think I've probably led up to it, so I'm not sure it's so hot now, but I think if you truly want to use ABM as part of delivering that differentiated client experience as a real lever for building trust, you know, in that early part of the journey and beyond, then you cannot think about it as being a campaign, or you'll really limit the outcomes that you can achieve through it.
Brilliant. So really becoming part of that sort of operating system of revenue, right, across the whole piece. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you. Emma, your hot take, please.
Yeah. So at Cognite, we have a mission, and that mission is to create an industrial world that's powered by data and AI, but freeing human creativity to shape a safer and more efficient and more sustainable future. And we've talked a lot about this, you know, the human creativity. So I think that vision that we have at a company level doesn't just apply to what we're selling as a technology, but it applies to how we're running ABM as well. Because for us, ABM is more about the deeper personalization at scale that's guided by the data, enabled by the technology that we have, but we still have to have it powered by human creativity. And so as we look ahead, AI is going to help us play a bigger and bigger role in that. But for me, you know, AI is going to be able to surface those right priorities across our accounts, but we need to be able to connect those insights to the story to find we've mentioned this a lot, but that emotional hook that makes someone care and makes someone want to talk to us, because that's the human work that we cannot outsource through AI. And we can use AI to make our time both more efficient and effective. But the biggest transformation that I see of how AI can help us is to see what's truly working, so we can take on that heavy lifting to get back to what we do best as ABMers, as marketers, and that's creativity. I think that's one of our best assets. And when we fuse that creativity with AI, we're not going to evolve, but we're just truly going to become unstoppable in how we work. And I think AI has just opened a whole new door for how we can. And as Sarah said, we're not there yet, but we're all ambitious, and we're going to, set ourselves on the road to success there.
Here. And I love the insight to emotion point. I think that's a great perspective to think about. And Amelia, over to you. I'm going to imagine that AI features somewhat in your hot take.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to be quite predictable here, and by 2030, I think we will be all using these intelligent self-learning systems that will be tapping into our, earlier ad performance and maybe, like other users' ad performance at scale, and learning from it to improve the existing ABM assets and personalize them based on all these different signals down to the individual level. So people will be getting these super relevant campaigns that will be driving value and that will be learning from previous experience.
Brilliant. So all about that ever increasing speed of learning and personalization, and really getting to the point where that's turning super quickly. Thank you so much. And Sarah, you get the last word again. What's your hot take for ABM 2030?
It's the privilege of probably being the oldest by far on the panel. I would say I think it's something that endures, actually, and something that should hopefully give hope, encouragement, and inspiration to all of the marketers who are building their careers around ABM. And that's like the human touch. Everything we've talked about is about augmenting the human, and we still have that need for human intuition, for empathy, for collaboration, and as Valentine's Day is just around the corner, for love. Because actually our clients all want a bit of love, and they want to feel that they are the priority and loved and wanted on a human level. We're selling to human beings. And I think, picking up on what Emma started to reference, which is, people will forget what we say and the pieces of content that we send them, or what we did and the campaigns they experienced, but they're not going to forget how we made them feel. And that's the thing I think that endures regardless, and that actually is at the heart of what we as ABMers and marketers want to do, is about delivering that experience that Rhiannon talked about, and making them feel loved by all of our brands.
Amazing. There are emoji reactions on this particular webinar platform, but I think you'd be getting a ton of claps and all the rest of it for those comments. I think definitely, not losing sight of the fact that people don't forget how we make them feel, I think is a great point for us all to take away. Thank you everyone for the hot takes. Brilliant stuff, and thank you so much for the thoughts on the 3 pillars there as well. We do have a little bit of time for questions, I think, unless Lara tells me we don't. So we're going to dive in and have a look at a few here that I think have been raised as we've been talking. So one here for you, Emma, I think. How is AI changing or impacting how you segment or cluster accounts to refine your plays and engagement strategies across the customer journey? Does this have any meaningful impact on your content strategy?
Great question. Yeah, so right now for ABM, we're typically focused on net new pipeline. So that's where I'm coming from now. But traditionally, we grouped our accounts by firmographics, like industry, size, geography, and we still do that now. But now using AI, ZoomInfo marketing for intent, we're able to cluster on behavioral patterns. So we have signal, activity, buying stage indicators. And for us, this was really critical because our plays were designed around patterns of problems, not just account attributes, which we were doing with just industry size, and we weren't seeing that actual intent signals that we talked about at the beginning of this webinar. But AI really helped us detect those patterns faster, which means we could segment them to have a better engagement strategy and not just a targeting exercise. So that did really impact our content and how we push things out within our campaigns. And instead of just creating more assets, we are focused on certain narratives to adapt to those buying signals.
Great. Thank you so much. Very comprehensive answer there. Thank you. One for you, Amelia. How are you coping with the impact of AI in terms of traffic loss to AEO and AI overviews? And how are you using ABM to help mitigate that shift in buying behaviors? Tricky one.
Great question. So this is exactly why we started investing in ABM heavily 2 years ago already. And I think the traffic loss from organic search is inevitable because basically search behavior is changing and more people are using AI tools and LLMs to get answers, especially to transactional queries. So we'll see an increase of that. And at the same time, as Google's costs of, running AI overviews increase, they're also limiting the crawl budgets that individual websites have. So basically, they're indexing fewer and fewer pages. So especially if a website kind of vies away from their core area of activity, Google will decide not to index these pages at all, potentially in the future. So it is very important to diversify. And what we are doing is basically it's pay to play. We have to invest more of the budget that we probably would invest into scaling organic content into paid media. That includes LinkedIn, that includes retargeting potentially on Meta and X, that includes increasingly also Reddit, potentially other platforms. And this is how we basically offset the organic traffic losses.
Oh, great. Thank you. I know that's a topic that a lot of marketers are wrestling with now. So thank you for sharing your strategies and tactics for that. Sarah, perhaps this is a good one for you that I've just seen come through. We spoke before about selling ABM's impact as a meaningful investment tool, but how do you manage that when leadership want to see quick impact? Looking to see new opportunities created, increased revenue within a shorter time frame.
I mean, well, that's always the tension that we have to manage, right? I think I tend to focus on a little bit of giving them what they want. Showing quick impact and quick wins, piloting of an approach, building a business case from that, and then scaling from there. Going in with a really big ask when something is unproven in the eyes of the leadership and they're not quite sure, they're skeptical, shall we say, about believing what we tell them, even if we know it's the right approach. Pilot and scale. Show them evidence of some tactic working, a level of insight that starts to make a difference. You only have to find a few advocates. And, I know Rhiannon and I have worked together in the past, and, we very much have used peer-to-peer counsel and enforcement to demonstrate success. You only have to have one of the client partners talking about the impact that an approach made for them and the positive effect it had for the others to suddenly want a piece of the action. And setting up and playing on a little bit of the competitive spirit you might have between sales leaders, demonstrating success and then building on it. And something we very often don't do very well as marketers, because we're always on to the next thing, is taking the time to package your success and tell a good story around it to demonstrate the true impact you have delivered and the role you have played. It's always a team sport, but you can absolutely show how you were a core part of the team and collectively move the dial or on a win and some level of growth. The other element I would say is learning just to deliver that impact in language that resonates with the business leaders you're talking to. My team on occasion will get frustrated with me. I get a lot of what we did and what the input was, but we have to focus on the output and the business impact and even the business impact for clients.
Wonderful.
I just add one thing to that, if I may. Like, if you want to try doing ABM and you've got long sales cycles, for example, but you just want that quick win success story, it's often worth looking at doing deal-based marketing where you've got some must-win opportunities in the pipeline where you can really show the impact of ABM, but in a short period of time, you're helping them create that compelling value proposition, coming up with innovative storytelling assets, and you're really infusing the ABM spirit, but in a very short time box. That's often a useful way to at least get your foot in the door, show the impact, and then, you know, scale out from there, like Sarah says, to those people who've got loud voices that will shout about you when it works.
Yeah,
That's a great shout. Sorry,
also done some deal acceleration campaigns for our ABM, and we do. So basically every deal that enters the pipeline gets into a different ABM campaign for us. The same applies to lost opportunities or churned customers. But on that note, I wanted to add that it might be also interesting for you to look into influence attribution. So rather than looking at first touch or last touch attribution, which is something that's a contact-based attribution, which is something what most CRMs are geared towards, looking at account level influence. So basically how many impressions of the ads has the account gotten, and do the deal open times correlate with a surge in impressions or engagements on account level? That is an indirect attribution that can showcase the impact of your ABM campaigns, even though you were not able to record that last touch conversion, which you may not have been able to record for privacy reasons. So a lot of times we lose that last touch attribution because someone has not accepted the cookies policy on your website, or someone was using an ad blocker in their browser, and all these factors basically are giving us false negatives in terms of revenue attribution.
That's great. Thank you. A great point at the end there. I think looking at influence rather than necessarily sourced first or last touch, I think is a great shout. Yeah, and the point around piloting, I think the deal-based suggestion is brilliant, and also the idea around you know, taking the time to really prove the impact that's been had. I think I definitely agree. That's something that we often see far too little of. I think we've got time for just one last quick question, Rhiannon. I'm gonna ask you. This is quite an interesting one. What is the most surprising or highly practical AI use case that has now become or is becoming standard practice for you or your teams in the last 90 days?
I don't know if it's surprising, but I think certainly where I'm seeing the most value, and I'm always on these AI tools now, but for me, it's in messaging development. So being able to talk to everyone across our business, to get transcripts from client listening calls, to pile such a rich amount of insight and data into an AI tool and get it to distill those key points, make sure it's infusing what we want to sell to the client, but in a way that's super relevant to what we know about them. That's where I'm personally using it a lot, and it's really, I suppose, given me that efficiency. But it's that efficiency to shift through that, the richness of insight that's always been in the organization, but no one previously has had enough time to actually make use of, and I find that really powerful.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Rhiannon. Well, look, thank you, everyone. I mean, unfortunately, we are very close to being up on time. So thank you. There we have it. That's ABM 2030 analysed, dissected, discussed from just about every angle over the last 60 minutes. I wish we had time for more, but unfortunately not. We've explored signals, we've explored AI, we've explored systems, a huge amount of different perspectives and views, and hopefully everyone who's joined is leaving with new ideas and perspectives to inform our future plans. A huge, big thank you to our wonderful panel. Once more, Rhiannon, Amelia, Sarah, and Emma, you were all fantastically brilliant. Standing ovations unfortunately don't really work on webinars, but if they did, I'm pretty sure you'd be getting one right now. So thank you very, very much indeed. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We will be sending round the recording of today's session, plus a link to the ABM 2030 playbook. Thank you once again to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who joined. And I will close just by saying have a wonderful end to your Thursday. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now. Thanks all.
Thank you too. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.